Saturday each week. So nice to have you with us. And Róisín, as always, kindly joins me on a Saturday.
Good morning, Father. Good morning, all.
Very good. Thanks for being here, Róisín. And we had a nice little guest earlier on. We were chatting to Mary O'Reilly downstairs.
Oh, wonderful lady, Father. Yes. My goodness, doing great work.
She came to visit us from a group called Apostolic Work. I think she's been involved in it for a good number of years now. And great to have that skill to be able to sew and what's the right, tailor, I suppose, vestments and altar cloths. So
Wonderful.
actually, I'd never mentioned to her that I know two priests who make vestments. So it's not exclusively a skill that ladies have a monopoly on.
Well, that must be a really hard job to make, because some of the vestments are magnificent, Father.
They are. Well, you can buy the brocade, as they call it. You know, the little strips of really nice. And the lovely material comes specially to, I suppose, whatever square yards of it that you buy, with the various designs and so on it. So then it's just a case of cutting into like an oval shape, like the desk actually here in front of us, with a hole in the middle. And just broad enough and wide enough, and then stitching the hems and putting some kind of a collar on it, maybe if it has that, and then put the brocade, sew the brocade evenly down the top, whatever. So it's not so difficult. Although the priest I know, Father Joe Terra, he's in the States. He made my ordination vestments. What if I have them downstairs? I don't. I think they're at home. But he actually embroidered. There's lovely Marian symbols on it. And there's hand embroidery on that, and it's just classy.
That's artistic, Father.
Yeah, correct. And he's a gifted man. He is artistic, and his handwriting is calligraphic. He writes in calligraphy, and you and anything he wrote for you, you'd keep it because it looks like it's just so ornate.
Fantastic! Such a gift, Father.
So fair play to Mary there. She's sending out mass kits out to the far regions of Africa for years. Apparently.
She's wonderful. And
has quite a few ladies helping with the making of linens and making investments and putting together the little boxes that'll make the maskets to be shipped out. So
wonderful, my gosh.
Very true. I think she's sacristan as well, I think, at our local parish.
In the church, and she's from Clontarf, which is a lovely part of the Dublin, you know.
On the north side there, near St. Anne's Park.
It's right beside the park, Father. And she was on one side and I was on the other side. So
you were.
Fantastic.
You were neighbours.
Oh, well, we didn't know each other, but we definitely were.
Sure.
It was only about like 600 metres, 600 acres, I should say.
Sure. And there's a golf course up the road as well, isn't there?
There's a golf course in front of us, and there's tennis courts, Father. And then there's the most magnificent pathway that used to be a magnificent old house, you know, there. One of the archbishops used to live in, I believe. And behind it then there was a big glass house. It was magnificent, but they knocked it down actually because it was, you know, it was damaged or whatever. But when I was growing up, I used to climb in underneath it and examine it. It was wonderful.
Into the glass house now?
No, you know, there was a, you know, pathway in under the. I know I shouldn't have been doing it now. My mum and dad hadn't known it; they'd have been given out.
It's all coming out now, years later. That's into the house itself.
And it was wonderful, Father. It was a fabulous part, but it's open now, very much open, and beautiful gardens and flower gardens, and people can go in and look around, you know, and a lake. Everything.
So it's a nice part. There's a golf course there as well.
There is, yes. It's not a huge big golf course now, but it's it is one there, for kind of beginners.
All right. So that's the Clontarf side of the city, and our camera is on. Róisín, it's all of a sudden it's working. So good morning to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. I think our Facebook page was just being temperamental for the past few days, and I don't know what the problem is. I need William Tuke's help to fix it. So anyway, nice to have you all with us here visually as well on this Saturday morning. So yes, thanks to Mary, Mary O'Reilly coming in to chat to us there, and she has her own little network of workers there doing all this wonderful work with them. And she didn't realise that you might have to explain the various cloths that the priest uses.
Oh, I'd say so.
Can you list them all yourself now?
No, I'm afraid I've never done anything like that, rather.
But you're good to watch them and maintain them for us here.
I do that. Right. I used to be like, I used to make my old clothes and everything. I can sew, you know.
Oh, listen, you're a candidate straight away. I should have told Mary. But the cloth that she put into each basket would be the finger towel, which you'd know the priest would wipe his fingers with that one.
Yes.
The purificator, which is for the
Each
chalice.
have a name.
Oh, they
Very
do, yeah.
good.
The finger towel for wiping the lavabo,
Yes.
it's called, which
Right.
where like lavab or laver is to wash, and the lavabo would be wiping the fingers. The purificator for just that cloth is dedicated only to clean the chalice.
Yes, beautiful.
Purificator.
Yes, yes.
And generally we'd only use one of those per mass. It would depend, I suppose, on the priest maybe a little bit too. But the corporal then is a square cloth that sits on the altar. It's put down at the time of the offertory, on which the chalice and the paten are placed. And the other linen item would be the pall, which is the square cover that sits on the chalice to stop the flies or whatever getting into the chalice on it. So they're the 4 linens, they call them the altar linens. And she says she does a little altar cloth as well, because they have a metal case they use to put the old mass kit into, and it would be very handy on the missions, obviously, if you're travelling around bumpy roads for miles and miles. But they'd open up the case out in the open, I suppose, under a tree or something, and they'd have a cloth made which would just cover the case.
Wonderful.
You know, very great idea, and just put everything on that then as well.
Fantastic.
Would include a chalice and a paten and a crucifix that would stand up. She says she makes the little stands for the crucifix, that if somebody has an old crucifix that doesn't have a stand on, she'll get some little stones from the garden, she'll get some polyfill and probably put it into the end of a tub, fill all the polyfill and stones in and stand the crucifix in it. And it's kind of cheap and cheerful, but you know, it will stand the test of time and it'll stand on the altar and be very solid there, won't be blown over, you know.
God, she's a talented lady, Father.
Yeah, it's great. She's sent, I know, hundreds out to all over the missions all over the world. But she's here in Dublin. There's another group in Belfast, apparently, that does the same. Apostolicwork.ie, if anybody's interested in finding out a bit more about them. Lovely pictures on there of their priests and communities out in Africa using their baskets.
Fantastic.
Very clever idea and very simple in its own way. So they're the linens that would accompany the Mass. It's nice to know. You see these things maybe every day, but you don't know what all the various little bits and pieces are that the priest would use.
I never knew the names, Father, even though I do the washing.
All right, okay. And you can tell the difference between them. You know, the finger towel is usually long.
Oh, they're all different sizes.
Yeah, yes. And the purificator would kind of be rectangular, that it would sit over the chalice. And the corporal would always be a square, the corporal would be a square cloth, yeah. So there's your liturgical lesson today. Next time you're in a sacristy, have a look around.
You can mention that and make everybody say, oh, wow, she's clever.
That's right, she knows all about it. Well, I used to have great fun for the First Communion children. I'd bring them down from the school and bring them into the sacristy.
Right.
And we'd open up the safe and open up the various things and say, like, here's my wardrobe, you know, open up the vestment cupboard and show them the 4 colours.
Oh, wonderful.
And they'd be absolutely fascinated with the whole thing. Yes. And the thurible, you know what the thurible is?
No, you have to tell me, Father.
That's for the charcoal and the incense.
Oh,
you know, you have
yes,
incense
yes,
and the thurible it has chains on it,
yeah.
usually in the lid that you pull it off, because we were roasting hot. So to show them that, and the Paschal candle and all the little bits and pieces that would be in a sacristy, and the drawers then with all the neatly stored cloths and the vestments as well, stoles and so on. And then the bells and the paten the altar servers would use. And my hope would be that they would graduate to maybe consider becoming servers in the parish. You know.
Well, my 2 boys were altar servers now, growing up, you know.
Yeah. I remember one of the days the good Monsignor was there, Monsignor James O'Donnell down in Macroom. A shout out to everybody in Macroom today, the last parish I was in. And the Monsignor is 90 years of age now and going strong he is. And so I had all the children in the sacristy one day, and the Monsignor was inside, and he's a lovely man. He loves seeing the children around. And I said, Monsignor Jim, now here are the boys and girls from the First Communion class, and he says, I'm ordained longer than they're alive, I'd say. But I said, Monsignor Jim, you're ordained longer than I'm alive. so so they go like, oh, wow, how old is he? You know. So it's a little fun moment.
Very funny.
But for this, it's a brilliant way to teach the small children.
Well, and encouraging them, Father, you know, to take part in it, you know, and it's not just something, I can't take part in. Definitely, it's great.
And we've been chatting about that, the idea of bringing, you know, even as a grandparent, bringing the little children into the church, light a candle, explain the little bits and pieces. The other fun part of that journey always was I bring them into the confessional. They go onto the confession box.
Oh, right. No, I've never done that there, Father.
All right. Well, if it's open, sure, show them anyway. It doesn't really harm to show them, because they'd be preparing for first confession. You
Of
see.
course they would, yeah.
So I bring them round, and I checked the setup in the parish where I was. There was kind of back-to-back confessions. You go in little entryway, and then there's two doors either side, and back-to-back confessions. And I said, well, the Monsignor has his confessional there, and I'm over here on this side. And I bring them in, I show them there's the screen, obviously, and the seat if they want to go face-to-face. There's a whole new experience for them, kneeling behind the screen. And I said, well, look, for your first confession here in the church, we won't be in the box here. We'll be doing it on the altars, where we usually do it in front of all the parents. So, there's no... But I said, look, when you come into the confession, there's a window there. You won't be in darkness, and if you prefer not to be known, you can kneel on this side and the priest doesn't have to see you. But if you want to chat with the priest and sit around this side, you can sit there. So I'd sit in my seat, and there'd be 5 or 10 of them in. It's squished into the little confession room, and they'd be kind of playing with the curtain and looking through the grill. And I said, this is you just tell your sins, and the priest gives you forgiveness. So in other words, kind of demystifying.
Taking the frightening business out, Father. It's brilliant.
That's it. And I said, when you come in, there's a glass in the door so that they can be seen as well, and they'll be safe. And I said, even when you come in, you can always leave the door open if you feel a bit safer that way too. But speak in a low voice in case anybody outside might
hear you.
So again, just taking all the sort of myth out of it, and all the any other ideas they might have had about the confession box being dark and it being this and that and the other. All that's gone, long since gone, So, and hopefully then that they would get into the habit maybe of dropping in to confession regularly after their first confession,
Lovely, Father. It's wonderful. It's such a gift, for children. And I mean, children are so good anyway.
And they're like sponges. They soak it all up. And the other lovely thing, to round off their visit to the church, outside and around the side of the church, we had a perpetual adoration chapel. And I'd bring them in, I'd show them the monstrance in Jesus there in the Blessed Sacrament. There'd be people in there praying, so I say, you have to be very quiet. You can't be making noise now. We'll come in, we'll only spend a few minutes and, kneel down and pray for your mammy and your daddy, pray for your granny and granddad, and I'd be doing the same as what I'd be asking you to be doing, Róisín. Bring them in, and sure, they love it. They love it. And we had some lovely teachers, and we'd arrange for them to come down, and we'd have maybe 15-20 minutes in the adoration chapel. And I tell the adorers ahead of time, I say, look, by the way,
they're coming.
That your hour is going to be interrupted here. And I'd bring in the guitar, and I'd set myself up near the front, and we'd sing maybe one of their communion hymns or that, and get them to pray as well. I'm sure the adorers who are there regularly would love it, because here all these young children.
Beautiful for children. I mean, God, you're in the presence of God when you're with all whole lot of young children.
Fabulous. So with Corpus Christi coming tomorrow,
yes.
There's a marvellous feast day, the Corpus Christi, meaning corpus, the body of Christ. That's where the word corporal comes from, for the square cloth that the priest uses, corpus meaning flesh, Christi, Christ, so the body of Christ. To teach our children what we believe, that Jesus is present really and truly in the Holy Eucharist. And what I used to do when I was explaining to them, I'd as if, I can see it on the camera now, I kind of take a bite out of my hand, so it's,
You're actually you're eating Jesus.
That he means it, eat my flesh and drink my blood. And then it'd be like, they understand and get it, and they said, oh, what does it taste like, I said, well, look, we'll have a practice, and I'll bring up altar breads. And again, I'll explain to them, these are the breads, the same circular breads, and I say they're just wafers of flour and water, that's what it's made of. And when we'll have a practice as to how you receive, and when you come up, I'll say an altar bread. I won't say the body of Christ. I'll just say an altar bread, and you can say amen, you can say whatever, thanks, I don't mind. But it'll just be an altar bread, and then you'll get to taste it and see what it's like. And again, to kind of, break it down for them.
Yes, so they wouldn't be frightened or anything.
Yeah, they know exactly. Yes. And we go through all the motions, I'd always prefer for them, at least initially, to receive on the tongue if they would. Of course, nowadays it's on the hand for the virus and so on. But I'd encourage that just out of reverence. I remember one of the mums asked me, actually, will you be making sure to teach them to receive on the tongue? You know, she's a lovely devout lady, a Polish lady. And I said, you better believe it. I'll certainly say that. But again, if they wish to receive on the hand, I'd have to explain very thoroughly how carefully to receive on the hand, and to look in their hands afterwards in case there's any particle. But I say for that, I explain very carefully why it's better, at least initially, certainly to receive on the tongue. And I think you keep up that practice, well and good. You know.
Yes, it used to be very popular. You never received on the hand, Father, when I was growing up.
Me neither. Me neither. And I suppose in older days before my time, it was always kneeling as well at the altar.
Yes, it was.
And that sense of reverence, and this is what I try to help them see and understand, the importance of reverence before Christ in His real presence, which is something sadly, we've lost over the years. We've lost, and I just wonder, have we kind of done a bit of damage ourselves? We took everything away.
Kneeling away in front of the altar. Yes.
The little things that remind us that Christ is present. Yes. So that's a debate that could go on, that I've had with lots of people.
That's life, Father.
But so with the small children, then I'd say, look, if you're wearing gloves, for instance, as some of the girls would, I said, if you can't receive Holy Communion if you're wearing gloves on, or if you're carrying a little handbag or something, again, it can be an awkward moment for you. I said, well, look, receive on the tongue, and that everything works out fine that way. Leave me with the responsibility, and it'll be fine. And so just explain to stick your tongue out. This is the one time you're allowed to stick out your tongue.
Children love that.
Of course. And so it's a lovely moment. And what we would do, and I'd invite the parents to bring them up to the altar, to just as they brought the child for baptism, bring the child for Holy Communion. I'd say, well, look, let the children alone receive first. Let you bring them up, let them receive, and return to your places. And then I'd invite
afterwards when the children are all.
And I would say to them too, to be fair, because they wouldn't be uncommon where some of them wouldn't be practicing regularly at all. We'd be trying to encourage it, of course, for the children ahead of the Mass too. But to come up and get a blessing instead, I'd say, look, don't feel excluded at all. But if you're not disposed to receive Holy Communion, maybe you're not Catholic, maybe you haven't darkened the door of the church, come on up and put your hands on your shoulders, and I'll give you a blessing instead. So these are lovely little teaching moments.
Beautiful, Father, and it's wonderful. You carry on the faith and give the children some courage to face into all the different things that are out there now.
For sure, I mean, it's the one thing that remains steadfast in the middle of everything else. So, as I understand, I think there was the government had issued restrictions on gatherings for First Communion and Confirmation for the summer. But I saw a letter come through from my own diocese. I think in July they can, if they wish, have confirmation ceremonies and First Communion ceremonies again. And I think the thinking was not so much the ceremony was going to cause a problem with people, but the gathering afterwards could be the issue. So I think in July, again, First Communions and confirmations can resume.
It would be wonderful, yes, because I have one of my little grandsons' father would be receiving his.
Oh, good. Lovely.
But my son keeps telling me it's not till this month, and
it's been put back and put back. Yes. Good. Well, please God, that'll come to pass. And in a way, because maybe it's smaller groups, I think there's a nice little intimacy in that. I was in a parish once where the First Communions weren't on a Saturday sort of done as a separate celebration, which was a lot of stress for the teachers too, and overtime for them as well. But the priest did it on the Sunday, during the normal Sunday Mass. And I thought that's a nice idea, because the community can actually
join
be
in.
involved.
Absolutely, yes.
And good for the families too, because sure, they'd be meeting people afterwards, and they'd be like, you're welcome and lovely to see you, and come again.
Oh,
and,
yes. It is spreading the word.
Stay with it, So there you are. So that's Mary O'Reilly. This is where we started off with that conversation. She was wondering how do we prepare to have our chat.
We can tell it. She was fantastic, and she liked Miss Scones too.
There you go. Well, I told you, when it comes to that bake-off with Radio Maria England, we're way ahead already.
It's wonderful to have her.
So listen, do text in, do email, and drop a comment there on YouTube. I'm not sure if we're on Facebook, but I'm glad we're on something today. So drop a comment and like and share and follow and so on. And text us here, 089 467 2000 is the text and WhatsApp number. You have the text, you have the studio phone in there. Yes, very good. Eva and Jerome are there with the phone. If you want to give a little text message, 089 467 2000. Tom is downstairs too. He'll answer the phone on the landline, 014 123456, to give a call. And info@radiomaria.ie is the email address. And write to us too if you're a person who likes to do a bit of calligraphy. Here at Radio Maria Ireland, St. Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. That's how you can write to us as well. And pop in and visit, but let us know you're coming so that we can arrange to have us going on hand, and that the building isn't overrun as well at the same time. So you'd be welcome to do that too if you'd like to see. I think Mary was suitably impressed with the building we had and the facilities.
Oh yes, she was. It was wonderful to have her, Father.
So God bless her and her apostolic work, and reminding us that all of us in some way or other are called to be apostolic, and it's good for us. It's good for us. So today's St. Boniface. I don't know if you know anything about St. Boniface.
No, you had a little bit, Father. I was
little
he's
bit.
English.
He's English, correct,
Yes.
correct. I think it was a Devonshire, maybe. This book will have an awful lot. I see it has two pages on St. Boniface.
Right.
Whereas because he's English, because this is the Oxford.
Ah, right. Oh, there you are.
This is ever so slight bias in this book. Ever so slight.
He was a martyr, Father.
He was, and extraordinary man. There's a fair bit of history written on him. And Ulrike actually was in touch because St. Boniface preached in Bavaria and other places too. And she says that St. Boniface is to Germany what St. Patrick is to Ireland.
Oh, wow.
But without the parades and the festivities and all the other stuff that we do.
We have a Paddy's Day.
That's right. So there will be a Bonnie's Day, I don't think, in the way we have a Paddy's Day. But he's highly regarded in Germany, having founded, I think, several diocesan churches and so on there. A monk, and known as the Apostle of Frisia and Germany. So if he's the Apostle of Germany, St. Patrick, the Apostle of Ireland too. So Archbishop of Mainz and a martyr, Mainz, Mainz, there in Germany. Born in Devon, so Devon cream tea, they have scones and cream tea.
They do, with a competition now.
That's Radio Maria England was saying that it would be Devon cream tea now versus the Irish scone, the wee scone in Ireland. So, let's see, born of land-owning Anglo-Saxon peasants, Boniface was educated in monasteries, first at Exeter and then at a place called Nursling in Hants, Hampshire, under Winbert. This goes back to the year 675, the 670s. Wow. So way, way back. And that's just sort of a century or more after St. Patrick. Yes. That kind of era we're talking about. So as a monk and a schoolmaster, he wrote the first Latin grammar to be produced in England. So a scholar too. And besides some poems and acrostics, an acrostic is an interesting thing. It's not a crossword. An acrostic is where you have like a poem or a story or something that's told alphabetically. If the first letter of each line, or that is the letter of the alphabet consecutively, an acrostic. Just a way of remembering things too. At the age of 30, he was ordained a priest, so that would be 705 was the year, and his knowledge of Scripture enabled him to be a successful teacher and preacher, and became known outside the monastery, and was chosen by Ine. You know who Ine is? Ine is king of Wessex, chosen by him and his synod to be their envoy to Burchard, Archbishop of Canterbury. But instead of following a fruitful career in England, he chose to leave and be a missionary instead, and went to Frisia in 716. And Willibrord Wilfrid and Willibrord had been there ahead of him, let's say. There were political overtones and conditions, and militant pagans in the ascendancy. These were the dark ages, and that's where St. Killian and some of our own lads
went through.
They headed off as well in the dark ages. Remember, I was saying in Radio Horeb, they said, "Look, we're only returning the favour that Killian brought." No?
Yes.
So Boniface the same. He was elected abbot anyway, and given charge, I suppose, the monastery there, and went to Rome to receive a definite mission from Gregory II to preach the gospel, and the area designated to him was Bavaria and Hesse. and he was consecrated bishop in 722. And the story goes on quite significantly, and I'm not going to read or go through it all. Yeah, there's a lot of history here, which is great. He actually has quite a bit of detail about him. I'm just wondering about the story behind his martyrdom. It looks like he was involved in the reform of the church in France, as you do in your spare time. Here, no council had been held for many years, and bishoprics were often vacant or sold or given to unsuitable laymen without training or vocation. There's obviously a lot of corruption going on in the church. Where's the martyrdom bit? I'm not finding it here. How like he must have obviously rubbed somebody up the wrong way.
I think it was Father.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would have said in the
yes,
Magnificat today. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to maybe bring it to a close there, except that his cult, if you like, or his interest in him grew certainly after he died. But he never became a principal saint in England, only in Germany, even in later centuries, although his feast was widely celebrated, and he belongs to the martyrology, I suppose, in Germany rather than England, which is interesting too. So, his body rests in Fulda, and in present-day Germany and Holland he is widely venerated as a monk, a reforming bishop, and as a very influential man of letters as well. So there you are. So there's lots more on that in this Oxford Dictionary of Saints. It says in the end he deserves to be better known and appreciated by his own countrymen.
Yes, absolutely.
In England. There you go. So I hope Radio Maria England are...
You're listening to that now.
Giving Boniface a shout out. I used to attend a church when I lived in Southampton called St. Boniface's.
Oh gosh, so he was.
So I kind of heard about him back then, way back, that's 40 years ago, a while ago now.
You're only a young fool.
Well, moving on now. But it was a lovely parish and a wonderful priest there as well. So his name obviously lives on in England.
Yes, it's fantastic, Father. I mean, look at where would we have been without all these wonderful men that carried the faith on?
Indeed, and women too. All these great witnesses who lay down their lives. There are a lot of martyrs now this week. Good, we'll take a little pause. If you have any messages again, please send them in 0894672000 or drop a comment here on YouTube as well. We'll have a look, see if there's any comments coming through there. So now we'll have a little piece of music, Only in God by John Michael Talbot. Lovely piece of music. Shout out quickly as well too for our 2 p.m. Rosary Rally today. I'll mention a bit more about that after the break. And do tune in then, and if it's such that you're not able to join in, they'll be available as podcasts hopefully by this evening after each of those talks too. We'll try and upload them as quick as so that you won't miss out on anything. So now John Michael Talbot. Thank you, Eva.
Only in God is my soul.
Yep, just put on the microphone. Just explain to listeners. I don't know what happened there, but it sounds like a YouTube glitch that he was going at double speed for some reason. Poor John Michael Talbot. So he was busy working on getting that straightened out for us. So sorry about that. That happens sometimes. We're good to go again. Thanks, Eva. Round 2.
Only in God is my soul at rest. In Him comes my salvation. He only is my rock, my strength, and my salvation, my stronghold, my Savior, shall not be afraid at all. My stronghold, my Savior, I shall not be moved. Only in God is found safety when the enemy pursues me. Only in God is found glory when I am found meek and found lowly. My stronghold, my Savior, I shall not be afraid at all. My stronghold, my Savior, I shall not be moved.
Just 30 seconds left.
Lovely.
Only in God is my soul at rest. In Him comes my salvation.
John Michael Talbot, thanks to you, thanks Jerome there. Beautiful piece of music and lovely guitar. I'd like to be able to play that little dinkly thing that he does there. Dee, 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 dee. It's really nice. So very good. I hope you're enjoying our programming here on Radio Maria. Good morning. Welcome, Father Eamonn, with you here again, and Róisín for our Chatechesis today. We're not on Facebook Live, Róisín. I'm looking there, and I don't know what the connection issue is there, but I think we're on YouTube, all right, if you want to have a watch in there or listening. And I'm just flicking through. I wonder if it's possible to post up to our Facebook page the poster that's we have for the Rosary Rally this afternoon. You'll find it in the text message there, the image of Our Lady and the details of our Rosary Rally. You might like to put that up on our Facebook page there using the studio phone. And it's on at 2 o'clock, 2 until 5. And we'll have 4 speakers there, and I'm kind of looking for it myself there to make sure I can get all the details right. But Father Philip Mulrine, you might have heard of him, that Dominican priest, Róisín. He's the man with, was a footballer with Manchester United.
Yes.
And the poor guy, that's kind of his standard introduction everywhere he goes. It's not
well, my son was a Manchester United fan, totally.
Okay.
I'd be delighted.
Good. Well, if you go meet that priest, then he'll get the best of both worlds right there. So he'll be speaking. Julie Cosden will also be speaking as well. And Bernadette Smith, The Precious Life in the North, will be speaking about, again, prayer in the pro-life movement there. And I'm down as well, Róisín, as if you don't get enough of me. You'd throw me under the bus here as well.
Oh no, you're doing great work, Father.
Well, it's the centenary year of the Legion of Mary, so I did a little talk with Father Marius and he's a men's group. There's some whatever night of the week, that man has always done something. And he got me to speak to them this few months ago. But it was to Frank Duff and the Rosary and the Legion of the Rosary, so there's a lot of history there. So I have something lined up for a little bit later.
Wonderful.
So from 2 until 5, all those speakers will be on. So do listen in and join in and share with it. And as I say, it'll be available as podcasts later on as well. It's actually lovely. You've seen the poster, a lovely little blue
that's
poster.
beautiful.
You've seen, maybe
No, I haven't seen that
Oh,
before,
go on.
that's
Oh,
really
shame on us.
lovely.
I've been sending it around to various people.
Yes.
We'll put up on our Facebook page there so that you can have a look at all the details of the conference as well. So, very good. Eileen is listening in, and she says, hi, Radio Maria, lovely listening in to Father and Róisín talking about children, getting their first Holy Communion, brought back lovely memories of our own children a few years back. wish we could have a regular celebration of receiving the Holy Eucharist that would be special for kids or youth, that would keep families and kids coming back to Mass.
True.
So if you could kind of do it again or recreate the atmosphere.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Oh, yes, and just to let them know how much help is there for them. You know, when you get in touch with Jesus, I mean, he just leads your life.
Sure. So just asking, are these youth masses or kids masses, are they in Dublin? Do you come across them in parishes here much now?
Well, no, I'm afraid not. Not in our parish, Father. It's been closed up for such a while.
Yes,
You know?
yeah. Well, when I was over in Kimmage Manor now in Green Hills, actually no, not Green Hills, actually Kimmage Manor itself, and I used to go to Mass service Sunday morning there in the early days. The morning Mass was the family Mass,
Yes,
and the children would all be involved.
Yes.
They'd have their own little gathering out in the middle of the aisle. It was a wide aisle because of it was a monastic setting. It was kind of stalls facing each other like there's a seminary church, you see.
Beautiful, yes.
So a big wide aisle. And so the children would be bringing up the gifts and they'd be doing the prayer of the faithful, and some of them were really, really good.
Yes.
So it was a family Mass. So that's a great way to
wonderful,
keep
Father,
the children involved for sure. To give them a little something to do in the liturgy.
Because there's so much out there now with children with computers and Facebooks and all sorts of things that are not helping them. You know, and takes over their mind, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and they need friends, and it's good to have friends who go to Mass too.
Oh,
you know,
yes.
to
And
get
how much God is and how important God is in their lives, you know, how much he loves them.
And get them singing and playing an instrument,
yes.
even if it's only a bowron, which Thomas would have an issue with, but...
Thomas is great.
Eileen says, it often seems that families are not seen at Mass in between First Holy Communion and Confirmation.
That's true.
Sadly, that's too true, unfortunately. But I would argue, if I may, it's kind of a two-way street. Certainly I know teachers in schools are very good, and like I say, I've sort of describing what I would do myself, trying to bend over backwards to make it, a lovely moment for them. But then if the parents just don't bring them, like what do I have to do, what else do I have to try and do to try to encourage families to keep coming to Mass? I see if they fall out of the habit of it, that's one thing.
Well, it was with the lockdown, Father, previous to the lockdown, in Clondalkin Church, there was always, you go over to Mass there on a Monday, and it would be children from the school, and maybe...
On the weekday?
Yes, be there for maybe for their confirmation previous or their Holy Communion, they'd all be there, and it was wonderful,
That
was a regular thing,
And that's good. That's good teachers now as well, are willing to bring the children up to the church, because demands a little bit of supervision on that during school time. And it's the one time you have a captive audience. We used to do that with the secondary school students, and sure, they would love to come because it's an hour or two off school. Why wouldn't you skip maths and skip Irish, and come up along? But we used to bring 2 or 3 of the secondary schools together into the church for our penitential services, and the church would be mobbed with students. It would be very, very impressive. But the teachers would be patrolling and policing like nobody's business. And you'd inevitably get a bit of messing going on, and just you'd have the boys' school and the girls' school, so you'd have
a bit of competition.
The girls would be dressing up for the occasion and all, So what could you do? There's a bit of that going on too. But I thought, look, this is good. This is a try. This is something. It just keeps them in tune with what the faith is about.
Yes, of course, it's spreading the word, Father. That's the more important thing than anything.
Sure. And we go into the schools too. We'd have penitential services in the assembly area in the schools, and for the ashes we'd go around to do all the schools with ashes. And these were just the moments you'd try and you'd hope and you'd pray and you'd think, some of this might register and stay with them for who.
I'd say it did, Father. I'd say it did a lot,
But the question then is, when the time comes, will they hold on to it? Will they come back to it? Will they deepen their faith themselves? Because it's one of the things, and some of the stories we certainly hear from our young people in Radio Maria, there comes a point where, it's true of all of us, we have to make a decision to decide.
Yes.
Is this,
Exactly.
So whatever we can do to facilitate that sort of defining moment which says, I believe I want to do this.
Yes. It's hard though for teenagers and so much changes in life and things, so it is hard, Father. And it's to be there, like, I mean, sometimes it's not it's a gradual belief. Sometimes, they're not going to just say, oh, great, it's there. It's a learning thing,
Well, if I can recommend, I played a bit of it last night in the Pioneer Hour. There is a brilliant video. I'll send you the link, actually, Róisín, maybe on your phone. Look up Matty Hart. Matty Hart. He's the son of Mickey Hart, the famous Mickey Hart, and brother, of course, of Michaela. A very sad situation that his sister was murdered that time on her honeymoon. Awful.
Yeah.
And he goes into, it's a 2-hour-long interview with a guy called Matt Fradd. He's one of these, he's Australian, but he's in America. And Matty Hart is in America with his wife and children now too, studying. He's going on to a doctorate in theology. But he tells his own personal journey and story, and about his own faith formation and his own, but having reached a point where, he had been in the routine of practicing, going to church and praying and so on, but he said that, there was a defining moment when it suddenly started to click in, and he met a very good priest who was very good to them. And it's a phenomenal story, and it's gripping. You'd stay listening to it. It's 2 hours long. And I must ask permission if we can play it back here for you on Radio Maria. And he's wearing his Pioneer pin and explains about his Pioneer membership as well. But he speaks about, his sister's passing and his closeness to his sister, the awful trial that ensued afterwards as well. The two men got off free. They weren't convicted in the end. And he said how easily he could have given way to hatred and revenge. And yet he says now he prays the Divine Mercy Chaplet for them every day, the two murderers.
Yes.
And you're thinking, how would you
saintly.
get to that? But he's very well spoken, and he's just so sort of driven in the faith. But his wife's expecting their 4th baby. Like they've sort of wonderful. 3 babies under 4 or something like that.
Wonderful, yes, great,
so
and full.
Extraordinary man, a great apostolic zeal there. But again, a man of our time and of our generation, let's say, and in a way, extraordinary family, I suppose, because Mickey Hart's so famous with the football team.
He's from the north, isn't he?
Yeah. And Mickey, of course, himself a staunch pioneer too.
Yes.
But that influence and how the faith carried them through this awful trial of his sister's murder, most extraordinary. And all the troubles and everything else in the north.
Yes.
And because he's addressing largely an American audience, he kind of explains a bit
the history of it,
what the story was. So I send you the link to that. It's a terrific
please do.
video. But like in response to Eileen there and like what you're saying, they're there. There's people of faith. They're families of faith. It just seems to be such a more difficult time to try to express the faith and live it.
It's really difficult time, especially with the churches all closed up, Father. I mean, Mass has been, not been available, and it's really hard. But please God, it's the end of it now. We're coming,
With God's help. And yet then how to reach the likes of those young families.
Oh, yes.
How do you maintain that contact? How do you...
I think we need lots of young priests out in all the different areas.
Yes, it'd be nice to have lots of young priests, but I would say lots of young people or other young families to minister to young families.
Oh, yes.
Would be probably a better way in that, I go to a house and, I'm put at the kitchen table talking to Granny with a cup of tea. I'm only kind of characterising it. That's not quite true. But, that the children are all off anywhere else. And I remember being at a station Mass years ago, and there was some of my young students were gathered. There was different families related from the same area. And I knew these kids. I was teaching at school to them all. And sure, while I was downstairs with the older gang, sure, they were glued to their screens and whatever else. And so I eventually the conversation then I said, where all the kids go, all the gang go? Oh, sure, they're over in the upstairs or the room over with. And so I said, well, I'm going to go say hello, And then next thing the priest comes in there in the middle, I don't know what game they were playing. There was, 8 or 10 children or young people in there, teens mostly, and they if they could have ran out and jumped out the window, they probably would
collapse.
So it's very hard to find, like as a priest, to engage with young people. That my best opportunities and moments were in school. So I think good Catholic families ministering to other families would be probably a better.
It's difficult though, to even for mum and dads to with teenage children. Father.
You better believe it.
You know?
Yeah, it's tough all around. It's tough. But anyway, that's let you propose another solution for us here, another suggestion. I'll take them all. I will take them all, because we want our young people to hold on to the faith. Our time has gone away from us, Róisín, again,
running
and
away.
We never get round to doing all and saying all the things we like to do and say here. But it's just nice to have the chat and to talk about the faith and the same difficulties that everyone has, really trying to live it.
Yes.
No joke.
And it's such a gift, Father. When they discover it, they'll realise it's such a gift.
And have a listen to Matty there, Matty Hart, and you'll say, wow, you know, a young man, he's only in his 20s, I suppose, maybe 30 that go, and his journey is phenomenal.
To hear it,
phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's 12, we better pause, bring
yes.
things to a close, so thanks to everybody watching, and who will watch later on, do like, share, follow, and subscribe, and all those things on our social media as well. And thanks for listening in. And don't forget, 2 o'clock, our Rosary Rally this afternoon should be a lovely afternoon of talks. You might like to have it on in the background there, or if you can't listen in, you can listen into the podcasts later on. So now, thanks to Eva and Jerome there for mixing this. We'll have a listen to our Angelus bells and return and pray together.